So as it concerns the Alex Murdaugh case, the key issue in detail that has been missed by everyone all the way along is Nathan Tuten has a certain alibi that he's used, since the beginning. He could not have been on the Moselle property or anywhere near the Moselle estate because he moved out, at a certain time, and so on and so forth. What potentially ruins this alibi and wrecks it significantly is there's testimony, alleged testimony from someone else, but testimony from Curtis Eddie Smith and similar, which stated Nathan never actually left the Moselle premises, essentially. And he states, Tuten also testifies on the stand officially that he was doing favors all the time, meaning every day, for Maggie Murdaugh. So both of those things cannot be true. If he moved out at the exact time being specified and then he was just driving Alex to the airport and that was all, then he couldn't have been doing favors for Maggie Murdaugh every single day. So there's a slip of the tongue there that reveals some interesting things. The other factor that leads me to the understanding that this indeed may not have ever been true is the log cabin was occupied, both the night before the murder itself takes place and on the actual night of the Moselle shooting, of the Moselle murders. And it's been said, it's been spoken also in court as well, and finally confirmed someone was there the night before. Allegedly Buster was there. Alex Murdaugh would meet someone there. Apparently, at least according to them, Nathan Tuten would pass through, that area. And so my belief, based upon cell phone evidence in the Moselle area, there was at least 2 unknown calls. Simply, that's where you have to narrow it down to finally. There's 2 unknown calls made to the phone. One that rings in apparently to Maggie's phone for some reason. But there's an unknown call that rings into Alex Murdaugh's phone. Okay? So if his phone is already pinging and showing, is shown to essentially be in that area of the kennels, it's in that general area, specifically when narrowing it down, then based upon some of the forensic evidence here, it stands to reason that the other phone, which is ringing in, because it's so close to Moselle, and because the actual old PMPED office is directly next to the Moselle estate, that phone couldn't just simply be written off as it's just a random number calling in. And that phone likely traces directly to Nathan Tuten's cell phone. And so why I'm bringing this up is so poignant and important. We don't have any definitive proof right now of who was in the log cabin on the night of the murder itself. There is, however, the unexplained cell phone call, which could just simply be traced back if somebody's doing their proper analysis of this crime scene. Okay? They could trace it to discover clearly that was Nathan. Again, why wouldn't he potentially still be there? And then if somebody's saying, well, oh, then he came in with the gun. No. If Nathan was there with anything, okay, somebody would have heard an additional gunshot. Somebody would have seen someone there. What I'm suggesting again is it's more than obvious now. Nathan could have simply been someone who was the accomplice. Therefore, he would be there to manage certain issues in the cabin. And that's it. How do you explain the fact that there's still the light on over near the cabin and so on? that it's clearly occupied. Okay? Buster would not be there. Clearly, he's not going to be there the exact same time that Alex Murdaugh is shooting, you know, and so on. But there is the unexplained cell phone signal still in the area. There is the fact that the log cabin is occupied. My belief, especially with what's going to be gone over here, is Nathan occupied that cabin still to a certain extent during the Moselle shooting and anything that was going on here. That's why the housekeeper said they still saw a light on. That I wanted to show in relationship to the cell phones. This is proof. Okay? Literal proof. Apparently Maggie Murdaugh's phone and also Alex Murdaugh's cell phone, specifically Alex's phone at the time, was in airplane mode. Yeah, airplane mode. Now normally when you are receiving or sending a unknown call, for example, or receiving an incoming call from an unknown source, meaning an unknown number, folks, that is a time when you would have airplane mode essentially set to active. That's a good reason. It's not the only stated reason, but that's a very important detail a lot of people have missed. That is a time when you have airplane mode active. Another key detail that I've pointed out in a few of the hard evidence based on the screenshots is some of the final text messages that were sent or received from these phones dealt with John Marvin. Okay? Why is that a key detail? Again, folks, John Marvin was at the law firm. He wasn't just a random person that Alex knew. Okay? He was at the law firm a lot. And it adds more support to the conclusion, okay, that Nathan Tuten was involved. Because they say that the so-called record for the cell phone, right, specifically the Maggie Murdaugh's cell phone, this example, it was originally in like landscape mode, you know, and then it switched to portrait mode. But it changed position from being in the normal mode that would certainly be assumed that it would be in. And it changed position several times during that exact timeline of 8:55 p.m. going into the late night, 9:20 p.m. and so on. That indicates someone was holding and moving that phone. It certainly could have been Alex Murdaugh. That's a very valid conclusion here. But based upon some of the evidence that I've started to uncover, I'm starting to very much conclude that it may well have been Nathan, because he had airplane mode active. The question that I'm asking again, when it comes to Alex Murdaugh's cell phone and some of the unknown steps and information on the phone itself, right? The question that I've always been asking, and I'm asking again, is why? Why did not only Maggie Murdaugh's cell phone apparently have airplane mode locked in, but also Alex Murdaugh's cell phone itself? Unless those unknown calls that were either outgoing or incoming came from someone nearby. And when I say that they would have come from someone nearby, they very well may have come from Nathan's cell phone. And so on that, again, I don't wish to be too accusatory here, right? Some of this evidence, though, paints an interesting picture. And it must be understood once and for all that given Alex truly committed this crime, it's looking very, very highly plausible now that he was the one who committed this crime, then who else was there is where I go to. And these pieces of hard evidence start to paint not a full picture, but a partial picture of the fact that airplane mode was active, which normally is not active on just cell phones at random, leading me to understand further Nathan Tuten was definitely there, and he may in fact have touched a cell phone. Not only that, it appears because there always has to be analysis of the actual cell phone record. It appears that someone called Alex Murdaugh at the time that he was in the physical kennels. And if airplane mode is in fact active, that would certainly lead a lot of support to the idea that the only person that could have been calling, by pointing out that this is hard evidence from the trial. This is not circumstantial evidence. This is hard evidence. I'm not going to disclose who kind of came onto the story in relation to this hard evidence. However, it's a key piece of the trial, and several different outlets within the last week or so have referred to it a number of times. One of the most powerful prosecution witnesses was Bianca Turbiat Simpson, the family's housekeeper who cleaned up the house that morning. During her testimony, prosecutors glossed over a discovery the housekeeper made a few days after the slayings: Maggie Murdaugh's wedding ring under the driver's seat of her car. The find could undermine the defense's argument that the Murdaughs had no marital problems at the time of the murders, but the prosecution allowed Turbiat Simpson to drop the bombshell that Maggie was not wearing her wedding ring without explanation. This is likely a key detail that the prosecution attempts to tie back into for the closing arguments. It's not uncommon to find a key piece of hard evidence like this to plant a seed of doubt around the relationship between Maggie and Alex Murdaugh. Plant that seed of doubt in the minds of the jury. One of Paul's friends testified to the prosecution and revealed an astonishing piece of information when he was working for them. Nathan Tuten stated that while working at the firm from 2019 to 2022, Alex Murdaugh would frequently ask him to cash checks for him at the local bank. Nathan Tuten stated that when he would return from Palmetto State Bank with cash in a bank envelope, he would bring the money directly to Alex Murdaugh in his office. Sometimes, Tuten stated, other people would be in Murdaugh's office, including MSC Police Chief Greg Alexander and attorneys Chris Wilson and Corey Fleming. Fleming has since been charged in another scandal involving more than $200,000 that was stolen from a settlement. Prosecutors did not ask Nathan Tuten for follow-up questions about the implications, even though they claimed financial crimes were Murdaugh's motivation in the murder. Are you suggesting he was giving Greg Alexander money? That's what Griffin said and asked to Tuten, who responded, Sir, I'm not suggesting anything. Evans had noted that because South Carolina Bar encourages lawyers who work together in personal injury cases to share attorney fees, what Tuten stated may not be that important. However, the sharing of fees between lawyers is never to be done in cash and must be fully disclosed to the client and the IRS. The presence of large sums of cash, if true, raises a number of troubling questions. Yeah, and what I've been saying all the way along is, right, folks, is because Nathan Tuten has a lot of things that he has never divulged to the public about why he was there, and potentially even why he was there during the month of June. Most important of all, the brown hair. This is where it gets interesting. This is a key piece of hard evidence. Colton County Sheriff Detective Laura Rutland testifies last month that she was among the first to arrive at the hunting estate in June 2021, and she observed strands of brown hair, basically dark brown hair, in Maggie's own hands. The revelation could give jurors pause, since Alex Murdaugh was said to have short strawberry blonde hair, and Maggie was, of course, blonde, and their other son was redheaded. Again, I'm not saying that this officially means something yet. However, I am pointing out it's impossible to deny the fact that Nathan Tuten, that's correct, has very dark, kind of this brown hair. And it's very interesting to make note of that. I wonder, I really have to wonder when I look at this, has someone done forensics or some kind of DNA testing on the brown hair? Because if that is in fact Nathan's, and that actually gets confirmed to be Nathan's, that opens up something very interesting. The key issue then is, either Maggie Murdaugh had it on her hands because Nathan was running favors for her at the time as he testified on the stand, including for paperwork, probably checks as well, and maybe at certain points clothing, if that turned out to be correct. However, it could also mean something else, which is a little more troubling, depending on what the final forensic results show. And that is, Maggie Murdaugh's hands had the strands of Nathan Tuten's hair in her hand, because, as was postulated in my first video, Nathan Tuten was directly at the dog kennels at some point in time. And therefore, maybe he didn't shoot them or shoot anyone, although that certainly can't be ruled out, that maybe he assisted in some way or touched a firearm, okay? But that would in fact then go directly to the outcome. Nathan Tuten was most certainly at the dog kennels. He would have had to have been there, and thus that essentially means he had to have been helping Alex Murdaugh in some capacity. Whether he ever touched a gun or not, that's a lot more difficult to prove. But he was obviously there. If that is in fact Nathan Tuten's hair, then it 100% cannot be denied at that point that Nathan Tuten was very likely at the dog kennel. And that would indicate he was helping Alex Murdaugh in some way, whether it was as a driver, whether it was as a cleanup person or something. But as I pointed out, by the fact that the log cabin was occupied, it would clearly at least confirm, at minimum, that he was there on the night of the murders. As to what it would confirm that he was doing, I guess you could make up different theories about what he was doing, but it would certainly confirm he was there the night of the murders. And then I would postulate that means he was assisting in some way with Alex Murdaugh to pull off the Moselle shooting. That's a very, very excellent question to leave out there. When you look at the fact that that brown hair certainly does match Nathan Tuten in a lot of respects, can you think of a reason of why that would be in Maggie's hands, or why Nathan would be there? Why it would potentially be the case that Nathan was in fact there on that night. What are your thoughts? Sound off. Make your comments known and your ideas known in the comments below. Thank you.
Thank you once again.
Okay, so the key issue here is there is now the golf cart theory, is what it's called, that Alex Murdaugh put forward. Okay? But people are missing a crucial key detail here. Very key detail regarding the golf cart theory that everyone appears to be missing, even some on the prosecution side. And that is, if the golf cart theory was absolutely 100% what happened, and Alex Murdaugh was in fact on this golf cart the whole time, zipping around, and only hopped off it for a couple of seconds to make the 911 call. If this was actually officially true, what he claimed on the stand, right, then there should not be blood on the steering wheel inside the actual car, where some residue, aka DNA fragments of Maggie's blood, are found on the steering wheel. Not only does that shoot down once and for all the golf cart theory, because there's no way possible that that blood could just somehow manifest on the steering wheel if Alex Murdaugh was in his little special golf cart the whole time zipping around. But the other key detail that people have missed the whole time on this very, very vital issue is, again, he testified to the fact that he was at the kennels. There were certain things on his actual shoes. The ground at the official dog kennel site was wet. It had just been combed over with the hose. Apparently it was still wet. It was still damp and so on. It was clearly discovered, partly in the testimony with Dale and with someone else, that that ground was still wet. And he had, on the base of those shoes, you saw actual impressions that made it clear he was walking on something. Murdaugh would have been walking on something wet. Okay? If he was just literally in the golf cart the whole time, there's no way that wet, actual water vapor or water would have been found on anything. There's no way that even the so-called tarp would be in the picture and that have something that was wet on it. Okay? So that almost kills the golf cart theory. The way that Alex Murdaugh described it is that he was zipping around on the golf cart almost the whole time, and he caught exact eyesight within his line of vision, his line of eyesight, in other words, that they were at the kennels and something was going on and so on, and then he had to get out of there. That's impossible, actually, because it doesn't explain, again, how some of the residue got onto the steering wheel, doesn't explain how some of the damp, wet residue of actual water got onto pieces of Alex's clothing. Allegedly, even some of the pieces and details they found with the actual shoes. And the most key issue of all, it doesn't explain how the hose was wrapped up in a specific sequence with a knot in it at the exact time that it was. No one else was there at the kennels. Buster Murdaugh wasn't at the kennels. No one, according to the housekeeper, was even down there at the kennels except for Paul and Maggie, who went there to see the dog. They wouldn't have done anything with a hose, so to speak. And the hose, at a specific time when they found the hose, had a knot in it, in the hose. Like it had just been used and used with water to wipe away and rinse down the whole area. Okay? The other element is if they really cared about this that much, they could do a test on that ridiculous golf cart and scientifically determine if there was like moisture and all this other dirt that was in there to determine if Alex Murdaugh was using this golf cart in all the ways that they're using and postulating in this idea, this theory. So again, Alex Murdaugh was not on a golf cart for more than probably a minute, tops. And if you would check the actual record log, not just for where the cell phone is tracing to, but the actual log, of the fuel for the golf cart, it'll determine that that cart could not have been used for more than a certain amount of steps. Nobody heard this golf cart that they claim is zipping around and moving around the property. Well, nobody heard this, and the golf cart would be extremely loud if it was actually moving fast around all the different parts of the property the way they state in their theory. So therefore, I'm not buying it. I'm saying absolutely no. The golf cart was not used except for maybe more than at most a minute tops. There would be tire tracks making it clear 100% evidence-wise that the golf cart had gone to here, gone to there, and had gone all the way around the property to get back to the house. Okay? I'm not buying it. I don't believe that the golf cart at all was doing exactly what they claim. It's impossible. Because then it's impossible to also explain, how did the hose get in the condition that it was in? Again, I'm saying here in the revised timeline, the revised theory, Alex, he had to have put the hose the way it was in that condition with the knot at the time that it was found. Because nobody else came in that area. So therefore, I would theorize that he was outside of the golf cart most of the time. After shooting and completing the shooting of Paul and Maggie, he actually rolled up the hose back into this exact area where the specific knot that could not be there otherwise ended up being found. So I believe it was either him or, conversely, it was Nathan. Because again, in the revised theory here that I'm putting forward, no one has been able to prove 100% where Nathan Tuten was on that night. There's the fact of the unknown cell phone signal that's out closer to where Maggie Murdaugh's phone was finally found. There's the fact that the log cabin was clearly occupied, had to have been occupied. There's the fact that we don't have forensic data yet on some of the cell phone records. And therefore, I firmly conclude that it's certainly very possible at this point Nathan may have rolled the hose up. So I say either Alex Murdaugh rolled the hose and put a knot in it the exact way it's shown there on video and on the actual still camera shots, or someone else did, who had to have been someone who was already known on the property. And that would most certainly likely be Nathan Tuten in this example. Also the fact that we don't know the exact logistics of the cell phone found near the log cabin yet. Those details have to be revealed. And if the golf cart was the professional hit mobile, as they keep putting forward, there would be tire tread marks all the way along the Moselle property. I'm not seeing tire tread marks all the way along Moselle. Therefore, I deny it being possible that anyone was in that golf cart for a very long period whatsoever. They likely were not. And that explains why Maggie Murdaugh's phone was found kind of parallel to where the dog...
There's going to be a video that's going to be dedicated directly to analysis of certain cell phone data that was extracted. But here's the key tidbits, the takeaways here. Because I don't need to prove right here, right now, of exactly what Nathan Tuten might have been doing or what he was doing at Moselle. I just need to prove essentially that, for the most part, it's very clear Nathan was there. Then the question needs to be asked, and I've asked this question for a while, why was he there during June? Alex Murdaugh's phone shows no activity between 6:52 p.m. and 9:04 p.m. on June 7th, 2021. Several entries in Murdaugh's official call logs show up on Paul and Maggie's cell phones, but they do not register in Alex's cell phone data. Then the Snapchat video begins. A video is taken on Paul's cell phone through this special app, where 3 voices are in the background. Multiple witnesses, of course, identify this for the official kennel video. The last time Paul, the frequent cell phone user, ever unlocks his phone was between 8:58 p.m. and 8:49:01 p.m. Maggie's cell phone is locked forever at 8:49:28 seconds. Police think they were killed between 8:50 p.m. and 9:06 p.m. when Murdaugh's vehicle was cranked. Between 9:02 and 9:06 p.m., according to telemetry data and other data extracted from the cell phone, it indicates Alex Murdaugh took 283 steps, or 70.75 steps per minute. It is the highest rate in number of steps he ever takes that afternoon. He was a busy guy. Well, and here's how I explain that, folks. I feel very strongly he got on the golf cart, but not to zip around the whole property or something. There's no evidence to suggest he was on that golf cart, except for maybe a minute or so. He wasn't on it for very long. That's what's become clear to me. Murdaugh's vehicle cranks at 9:06 p.m. and leaves at 9:07. This is less than 20 seconds later, which calls into question the claim that the 911 and police have about that he checked both bodies for the pulse. Okay, that's fine. The inconsistency is in the fact that there are a couple of calls that essentially show up on Alex Murdaugh's cell phone coming in during that time period. And it's an unidentified caller, meaning it's like an unknown call, according to ping records and things, in the way that they kind of narrow things down sometimes and try to trace calls. It's presumed to be an unknown caller. And what I'm saying is because there's all these text messages with John Marvin, because there's other circumstantial evidence and other actual hard evidence which is leaning in that direction now as well, is that this unknown caller, because it showed up pinging on Alex Murdaugh's ID, on his ID log a number of times, this unknown caller was Nathan Tuten, just calling from kind of a burner phone. That's where I'm starting to supplement and conclude other parts of this overall theory, is that, yeah, he was calling Alex from a burner phone, very likely, okay? And there's several entries in Alex Murdaugh's call log. His registry log for the cell phone was deleted. Going by certain key factors in the timeline, I don't believe that Alex Murdaugh deleted the call log. I don't think he's that. I think he's pretty good with things, but I don't think he's that much of a technology, buff a lot. Someone, though, deleted those call logs. And my feeling is, based upon certain things I've really encountered now, that that person was Nathan. Nathan deleted the call logs. And that might explain why certain tracks were being covered all the way along. That certain calls just didn't show up. That there was an unknown phone number that people couldn't understand. Why would anyone be calling Alex Murdaugh's cell phone? Again, I say it's because Nathan was calling him. Nathan was certainly there at Moselle. And he was therefore helping Alex Murdaugh, not completing the crime, but helping him clean it up. That's where I'm going from this. And also some of the unusual trace from the telemetry data that's still needing to be looked at for the cell phone tower. It just feels like this missing issue deals directly with Nathan Tuten. Thank you again.
entire collection of records and screenshots on this. So basically what this confirms is based upon data, based upon all cell phone records that were available. They don't think that Paul's actual cell phone left that kennel area between 8:44 p.m. and 10:18 p.m. It's also explained based upon the cell phone and tower location data that from the time of 4:10 p.m. to 6:25 p.m., the cell phone kept pinging directly at Hampton, near the PMPED law firm. And from 6:40 p.m. to 9:10 p.m., it then pinged directly in the Moselle area, still fairly close to the law firm area, the offices. Again, then at 9:18 p.m. it pings near Barnville, so on. So this is a very interesting chart. At 9:52 p.m. it pings near Moselle in the sector facing Barnville. The 911 call is supposed to be placed at exactly 10:06. So again, what it confirms, and they were not able to locate C.B. Rowe, Marty Cook, or anyone there on the property, but what it confirms is some unusual cell phone activity occurred directly at the Moselle estate. That's when these unknown calls, or unknown incoming calls, would have come in to Alex Murdaugh. And that would confirm then that very well turns out to be Nathan Tuten. Because again, they're having some unexplained pings there that you can't identify. Talking about a cell phone tower that's bumping the signal. And so this key evidence for certain, and also where it pings then again when they go back towards Alameda, leads me to conclude that Nathan Tuten was definitely one of the phone calls made. That's the vital thing here. Thank you. Keep leaving your comments.